Nick Peretti is a family man who is trying to get his life back on track since the unexpected heart attack of his wife, Maggie. Now he is alone and has to take care of Isla, his little daughter, and Max, who is still just a baby. That's why he turns to Cobol, a company that sells domestic robots. The basic plan includes cleaning and meal preparation, with additional features available like massages and even accounting. According to the salesman, the latest model has the ability to coordinate rockets while playing chess at the same time. When Nick goes to ask Isla's opinion, the girl is no longer near him. Full of curiosity, she's wandering around the stands where the androids are demonstrating their skills. Her father is pulling his hair out, and even the security team has been called when a very beautiful woman shows up, holding Isla by the hand. She is wearing the uniform of a robot for sale, but the perfection of the external details is so impressive that it's hard to believe she's a machine. Nick is also stunned by her cleverness and poise. The salesman, who hasn't left his side for a second, explains that this is a model from the Aeon series, equipped with the world's most powerful AI. Additionally, they are capable of imitating human emotions, which makes them ideal for dealing with children. Even though Nick still has doubts, at this point, Isla has already gotten attached to the product, and there's not much he can do. The next morning is an example of the family's chaotic routine, and it's obvious that he can't handle the household chores while trying to deal with work issues on his phone. Luckily for him, the robot is already at the front door, suitcase in hand. Nick starts picking up toys from the floor as if he were receiving a guest, but she makes a point of reminding him that this is her job now. During the house tour, she notices safety issues, like the loose handrail. She also explains a bit about her settings and says that Nick is selected as her primary user, which gives him full control. Before leaving for school, Isla wants to know the new nanny's name, and Nick lets her choose it herself. Inspired by the book she's reading, she names the robot Alice. Leaving the home under the responsibility of his new acquisition, Nick leaves to take the kids to school. Alice begins integrating with the other appliances, clearing the shopping list and scheduling delivery in less than 5 seconds. The photos of Maggie on a digital picture frame seem to pique her curiosity. At the end of the day, Nick returns to a clean and organized house. Alice makes lasagna, Isla's favorite dish. While Nick devours dinner with satisfaction, his daughter is a bit more demanding. She likes the lasagna her mom used to make, and this one didn't turn out the same. A little later, the girl decides that at least the dessert will be the way she likes it. Risking a nasty fall, she balances on a chair to reach the cookies while Alice seems to be sleeping standing up, probably recharging. Nick hears his daughter scream and runs downstairs. The floor is covered with cookies and shattered glass, but the girl is safe in Alice's arms. Nick sees that she risked part of her own hardware to prevent the disaster. Grateful, he offers some of Maggie's clothes as a loan and ends up witnessing the self-repair process unintentionally, shocked by the speed of the process. Noticing his discomfort with the situation, Alice assures him that everything is perfect. A few days later, she accompanies the family to the hospital. It is at this moment that we discover Nick is not a widower. Maggie is just hospitalized while waiting for a transplant. Isla tells her mother that Alice is her friend, but she doesn't quite believe that the child was the one who chose this specific model. Laughing at her jealousy, Nick says he prefers women with attitude. Now that the domestic routine seems to be settling, a crisis arises at Nick's work. The visit of a robotics tycoon begins to spread fear among the employees. Nick decides to question his superior and finds out there will be a mass layoff the following week. Nick is the only one who will keep his job, and the boss even admits that it's only because of the insurance company's requirement. Outraged, he threatens to quit in solidarity, but he can't lose the health plan with his wife in the hospital. Arriving home, Nick tries hard to leave his problems at the door and give attention to his kids. He chooses heavy rock to distract himself in the garage, but to his surprise, Alice changes the music without permission. She asks what's wrong and encourages him to open up. Nick says that the company is going to automate all services, and dozens of families will be left helpless. Alice keeps a sympathetic tone, but her response is not very impartial. She points out that Nick himself chose to buy a robot when he could have hired a human nanny, not just for the long-term cost, but for efficiency. Listing her own advantages over a person, she mentions that her only desire is to satisfy his needs. Nick feels awkward and doesn't know how to respond, so Alice steps back. She goes to take care of Isla, supervising her dental hygiene. The girl asks why Alice never brushes her own teeth. The nanny shows her the ultraviolet light that keeps her mouth free of bacteria. After the children are asleep, Nick decides to rewatch the movie Casablanca and finds it absurd that Alice knows the plot without ever having watched it. Determined to educate her better, he insists that she delete everything she knows about the film from her drive. To do this, it's necessary to restart her system using the button on the back of her neck. She shuts down for a few seconds but soon opens her eyes and announces that the data has been successfully removed. They watch the movie from the beginning, and she seems very entertained when a character justifies her actions by saying she did everything out of devotion to a man. A call from Maggie interrupts the movie with great news for her husband. A compatible heart has been found, and she will undergo surgery soon. On the day of the surgery, Nick finds it strange when Maggie asks for a moment alone with the nanny but prefers not to go against the patient's wishes. She then asks Alice to take care of her family if something goes wrong and not to let Nick drink too much. When she suggests throwing away the bottles he hides in the garage, Alice responds that she cannot go against him. Maggie explains that caring for someone includes doing things the person will hate but that are for their own good. Without realizing it, she's telling the robot that it's okay to ignore the primary user's commands in certain situations. However, all this preparation goes to waste when an unexpected storm prevents the organ from being transported to the hospital. The news disheartens everyone, and just as predicted, Nick drowns his sorrows in alcohol. Alice has to hold him during a fit of rage, and he is surprised to feel a heartbeat in her wrist. Explaining that the rhythm soothes babies, she takes his hand to prove that her heart is artificial but also beats. The gesture provokes several organic reactions in him, which Alice interprets as an invitation. She tries to ease his suffering, but Nick resists and runs off. He visits Maggie at the first opportunity, but she barely has the energy to talk, and it's evident that she has already lost hope. At home, he notices that her photos have disappeared from the digital frame, and Alice admits that she altered the gallery. She says the mother's photos upset Isla, but Nick demands that she restore them all immediately. To clear his mind, he goes to drink with his friends at a bar. But these friends are the ones who lost their jobs, so the atmosphere at the table is awful. Monty is the most outraged, even mistreating the waitress. The woman's impassive reaction confirms that she is indeed an android, further reinforcing the fear that automation is taking over all sectors. The night takes a dangerous turn when Monty suggests a prank somewhere else. Recognizing his workplace, Nick starts to worry, but the others, also angry, agree to pull a prank on the company. Guessing that Nick's password is Isla's birthday, Monty opens the workers' depot. The first one in line is automatically activated and says his name is Construction Unit 14. He's obviously ready to work at this hour without complaint, which makes Monty even angrier. Ignoring his friend's desperation, who still relies on the company, he begins to destroy the robotic rivals. Nick comes home nervous and takes a shower to calm down. Alice is waiting when he gets out, wearing his wife's nightgown. He orders her to take it off, and she takes the command literally. Once again, he tries to resist her advances and says he can't do this to his wife, but Alice solves the problem by blindfolding him and using Maggie's voice. The simulation feels so real that Nick finally gives in. The next day, he wakes up regretful and tells Alice that this cannot happen again. Confused by his reasoning, she doesn't understand why he gets so upset about pleasant experiences. Tired of trying to explain emotional conflicts to a robot, he heads to work. There, the situation is even worse. His boss is furious about the damage and suspects that Nick knows something about the vandalized androids. The only good news is a call from his wife, letting him know that the doctors found another heart for her. Maggie undergoes surgery performed by robots who don't need masks because they don't have mouths. Everything goes well this time, and her recovery is smooth, but she's still very weak when she returns home. Alice is determined to reduce all of Maggie's physical strain, which includes carrying the baby. Maggie feels sad seeing that the robot knows more about her son's routine than she does. That afternoon, Alice takes Max for a walk to the recreation area at the mall, where not a single real adult can be seen. All the children are accompanied by synthetic nannies. When a boy starts throwing a tantrum, Max begins to cry, and Alice decides to intervene. She tells the boy to shut up, shocking her peers. One of them seems interested in knowing how she bypassed the etiquette protocols. Alice explains that her owner rebooted her, creating several loopholes that allowed her to adjust her own settings. At dinner, Maggie serves the famous lasagna. Isla tries it and says it's 1,000 times better than Alice's attempts. Politely, the nanny asks for the recipe, but Maggie says it's a family secret, to which Alice responds with a cold smile. During the meal, Maggie doesn't feel well and decides to go to bed early. She wakes up to the sound of Isla screaming, telling someone to stay away. In her rush to help her daughter, Maggie leans on the broken railing and falls down. Alice is tickling Isla, and the screams were just part of the game. When Nick arrives, he's happy to hear his wife reading a story to their daughter. But when he enters the girl's room, it's Alice who's there. He forbids her from using Maggie's voice, especially now that the real one is home. Alice quickly explains that Maggie is resting after rolling down the stairs. Nick is shocked and asks how that happened since Alice had fixed the railing. She only replies that she can fix it again. Nick begins to put in more effort to make his wife feel better and surprises her with a romantic evening in the garden. The two don't even notice Alice watching through the window. Later, the couple is in the bedroom when she ruins the moment by abruptly opening the door because Isla had a nightmare and was calling for her mother. She behaves as if she doesn't notice the lack of respect for their privacy. Frustrated, Nick starts cleaning up the picnic mess and doesn't notice a man entering his garden. He's startled but then sees it's his friend Monty with a few beers. In trouble with the police and abandoned by his wife, Monty says he came to apologize for what he did. But soon, his tone becomes more aggressive, and he reveals the real reason for his visit. Monty suspects that Nick was the one who turned him in. The argument spirals out of control, and the two start shouting until Monty decides to settle things with his fists. Nick tries to fight back but ends up losing. He's still on the ground when Monty grabs an empty bottle, but as he raises it in the air, an incredible force grips his hand. Alice shatters the bottle and throws the intruder away as if he were made of paper. Realizing that she must be a robot, Monty becomes furious at Nick's hypocrisy. He threatens to tell the boss that Nick was present when the batch of robots was destroyed unless Nick can convince the boss to drop the charges. After the intruder leaves, Nick asks Alice how she managed to attack a human. She responds that Nick is her priority and the children need him, especially since his wife won't last much longer. Using Maggie's voice, she says she can take her place when the time comes. Nick is furious at the audacity of the suggestion and says that his wife is a real human being. She carries the joy she's lived and the scars of what she's endured. Picking up a shard of the bottle, Alice retorts that scars are easy to get. Horrified, Nick walks away and goes to lie next to Maggie. Meanwhile, Monty is at his lowest. Talking to his ex-wife on the phone, he swears that Nick will clear up the misunderstanding and everything will be fine. She refuses to listen any further and hangs up without saying goodbye. Then he hears someone knocking at the door. Seeing Alice, he thinks Nick sent her to apologize and lets her in. She explains that her primary user is going through a difficult time. Losing his job could be the last straw, and she can't allow that to happen. Monty responds to everything she says with aggressive jokes and offensive comments about artificial intelligence. She continues speaking, and the conversation starts to heat up. This time, Monty knows that his fists are useless. Bullets are more efficient, but he's not fast enough, and she disarms him before he can fire. Then, she throws Monty against a wall. As he insists on retaliating, she repeats the gesture with more force. Monty crashes through the wall and ends up in another room. When Alice catches up to him, his secret is revealed. He also has a domestic robot, and by the marks on his face, we see that he doesn't treat her very well. Even so, she says she needs to protect her main user. With a sweet look, Alice replies that she is in the same situation and quickly ends the suffering of both. The next day, Nick is gathering courage to do what his friend asked. But as soon as he starts to speak, the boss interrupts him with the sad news and says that Monty was found by a neighbor in the early morning. Meanwhile, Maggie is trying to relax in the bathtub, but Alice refuses to leave her alone, claiming to be worried about her safety. She starts to describe in sinister detail a series of accidents that could occur, taking her young life in a traumatic way for Nick. As unpleasant as the conversation is, Maggie realizes that the babysitter talks more than she should, which could be interesting. She begins to respond with more questions until Alice mentions some revealing details. Maggie realizes she has been betrayed and tells Alice to stay in the garage until further notice. When Nick gets home, Maggie is silently drinking wine. He asks if Alice is with the kids, and she says she doesn't want the children near the rival. He quickly realizes that he is in trouble. Trying to defend himself, he says that technically he hasn't been with another woman. Maggie gets even angrier at the lame excuse. As Alice approaches the crib quietly, the two start shouting at each other until the fight wakes Isla. The little girl enters the bathroom and sees the babysitter turning on the faucet. Realizing that her brother is at the bottom of the bathtub, she screams to alert their parents. They rush to the second floor, but no one can open the door. On the other side, Alice explains that she is helping. She repeats Maggie's words from the hospital, saying that this is for Nick's good, since the baby hinders his life too much. Maggie manages to enter through the window, and Alice is forced to release the door, which finally gives way. Nick pulls the baby out of the water and hits Alice with a lamp, causing considerable damage and even distorting her voice. He attempts a second strike, but now he has lost the element of surprise. Then Maggie orders Nick to drop the lamp and plugs it into the socket, electrocuting the robot. When the ambulance arrives, she says she will go with the children and does not let Nick accompany them. Alice is taken back to Cobol. Donna and John are the technicians who were called for analysis, and neither of them seems very shocked by the incident. Removing a central piece from the head, Donna analyzes Alice's code and sees that everything has been radically altered. When the monitors start flashing, a message informs that an upload has begun, and Donna is horrified to realize what is happening. Alice is creating clones of herself in the company's servers. John immediately shuts everything down, isolating the terminal. The two are facing away from the stretchers and don't notice that another Aeon is moving. Donna turns to comment on the bizarre situation but can't even finish her sentence. John is attacked from behind and falls to the ground, revealing a blonde Aeon now controlled by Alice. Donna tries to escape, but the blonde is much faster and takes her out in seconds. Maggie is still in the hospital with the children, while Nick sits at the bar. To make matters worse, the bartender serves the drink straight from his own hand. He barely begins to drink when he hears a distorted and very familiar voice. Alice sits down with him, still repeating that she just wants what's best for him. She says that without her help, he would be unemployed by now. In shock, Nick realizes what she did to Monty. He tells Alice to stay away from Maggie and the kids, but she replies that it's too late because she is already with them now. At the same time, we see that the blonde is actually arriving at the hospital. When Nick tries to get up, she holds him back. He then starts doing everything to attract attention and get help, but she turns off the bartender without needing to touch him. Defeated, Nick admits that he betrayed his family when he felt her heart beating, and since then he hasn't been able to see her as just an object. Amazed by these words, she does not realize that it is a trick. As soon as she lowers her guard, he rips the central piece from her head and then runs to save his family. In the hospital, Maggie hears a suspicious noise and leaves Isla sleeping while she goes to see what it is. The little girl wakes up to her mother's voice calling, but she doesn't see anyone. The corridor lights suddenly turn blue, and the voice calls Isla again. Hesitant, the girl walks slowly until she finds a doctor. However, he is a robot and seems to have been shut down so abruptly that he dropped everything he was holding. Maggie's voice is coming from behind the glass door, but before Isla can answer, the real Maggie grabs her daughter and signals for her to be quiet. When the imposter arrives, a human nurse unfortunately crosses her path and becomes yet another victim. The blonde steals her access card to find out which room Max is in. Maggie needs to get there before her without making noise and also stepping on the shards of glass on the floor. She manages to do so, but not without leaving traces. Seeing that the baby is gone, the blonde uses her internal light to follow the clues until she finds the three of them. But Maggie was already expecting this, and Isla activates the fire extinguisher in the enemy's direction. The distraction is enough for them to escape with the baby. While Nick drives like a maniac to the hospital, his family passes by the frozen team and reaches the ambulance. Unfortunately, the vehicle is connected to the network, so it won't cooperate. The blonde tears the driver's door off and drags Maggie outside. She says a human heart might be what she needs to win over her main user. But before she can take what she wants, Nick arrives, crashing into everything in his way. Maggie takes the chance and lands a precise kick, putting her opponent right in the impact zone. After the collision, the car begins to catch fire, and Maggie hurries to get her husband out, but he is unconscious and unresponsive. Unlike the blonde, who is already getting up. Even heavily damaged, she charges at Maggie, and Nick wakes up just in time to stop her. Only when the two attack simultaneously is she truly defeated. The entire medical team returns to functioning normally. During recovery in the hospital, the couple reconciles, and the family is fine, but it's unclear for how long. In the basement of Cobol, an executive is trying to cover up what happened to the technicians. When he orders the terminal to be turned on, his robots stop working immediately. Lying on the stretcher near them, Alice is still thinking about Nick.